Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Geek 2.0 podcast. We got yet another special guest. It's like an early Christmas present. It's like buy one, get one.
Christmas then is going to be very underwhelming.
Oh, I don't know. We can pop out like the balloons and other stuff.
That they're not going to see.
Yeah, true. You can deflate it here. But we got our guest, Tommy, is here.
Hey everybody. Joe appreciates that from previous work videos that I used to have to do.
Hey everybody.
Hey everybody, this is Tommy from the IT department here talking about
Stuff.
Things and stuff.
So we're actually going to be talking about STEM programs, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the good stuff.
Yes.
See, I was underneath the impression, since I am the stoner of the group, that this was going to be about stems and seeds in schools. So I am not prepared for this at all. So thank you guys.
Sticky, icky.
Okay, you guys have not made this clear to me at all. So I appreciate everything
Well,
you've
that's
done.
next month. I'm sorry.
We're going to have you back out then.
Yeah, no, fine. That's cool with me. I enjoy the 2-hour drive back and forth. It's excellent. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, it's basically how when we grew up is everything was like not home ec. Oh, I'd say home ec was still around.
Yeah.
You got your shop class, and you see in movies and TVs. Everyone goes into shop class, and that's the place to go and fall asleep or take a 2-hour nap.
Well, as we were talking earlier, depending on when you went to school, you may or may not have had the shop class.
Yeah, you had these rooms that were set up and stuff still in there, or they were completely stripped out. But
yeah, the last one I had was in would have been 8th grade. We had a technology class that dealt with the circuit boards and the robotics and all that, and that was the end of it.
I'm starting to realize this podcast is more about grumpy old men
Yes.
than technology in any way. It's
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn. I used to like film in movies, and I like turning wrenches.
back in middle school, like it was the we had our own little radio show like set up. We built computers and had a slot car racing. That was good times.
That was good times.
Then we're going to meet at McDonald's later in the morning.
Now it's all these damn kids and their Snapchats and their
Filters
Instagrams.
You
So
don't need to vomit rainbows and all that. Puppy dog. But now it's more of it's like a throwback to or as a callback for say, hey, maybe we should actually be doing some stuff for our kids instead of digging ditches and
I think
and
they
learning
realized.
how to do some more small stuff.
I think they realized how screwed up we are because they took away that stuff. And they're realizing, oh crap, there's no one out there to actually do these jobs.
Who's going to fix my computer?
So yeah, there's gigantic economic ramifications off of this because what was it, a couple of years ago they did a study and they found that there was 3.5 million jobs open that people couldn't fill because no one wanted to turn wrenches or weld seams.
Yeah.
And there was a huge deficit in that education. So
I mean, we've got mutual friends that refuse to take certain jobs because they feel they are more suited for the manager or the higher end position, even though they've got no real world in-seat experience to work their way up to that level. But that's just the mindset that they've been given.
Even now is because if you look at like your basic IT jobs, it's an oversaturated market now. And then if you look at it, it's like, oh, you need a 5-year bachelor's or some kind of experience. They're not going to take any Joe off the street.
Pun intended.
well, not only that, but it's a dying market as well.
Yes.
Especially with everything going up to the cloud and artificial intelligence. No one has an IT department. That's now a hole that you just throw money into.
Well, not even. Most companies are looking at IT departments as like a waste. It's like, well, we can offshore it or outsource it to another company to do what we used to have, like a group of people in-house to do.
Well, it's the only way of making what you were just talking about, making something that you throw money at that does nothing. You start the business that's how they make the money. So the company you're throwing the money at you, and it's cheaper for the other company. So I mean, that is definitely the way. It makes sense, but it doesn't.
Oh yeah.
Well, we all been in like an IT field before, one way or still in, but it's just like the whole growth of it. It's just kind of moving away because our first was a call center.
Yeah.
That was our first taste into like an IT kind of field, and we grew up from there to something that was a little bit better.
Just a little bit.
And my experience was, hey, you know how to work on computers, right? I was working at a customer service center, and I was like, yeah, I know computers are good. And
I know how to power it on.
I know how to turn them on. And all of a sudden, they're like, well, congratulations. 4 months later, I was the IT manager of a small company.
So basically, you were, what was it, Jen in the IT crowd?
Yeah. Like I was like, yeah, no,
I know a mouse, mice.
I've built a
monitors.
computer before. I know this stuff, and then all of a sudden, I was a system administrator out of nowhere, and I had to learn how to do Active Directory, and I had to learn Linux because they refused to buy Microsoft because they were very, very cheap. So, but learned how to do Linux and command line and all that wonderful stuff, and basically what I'm saying is I'll do anything for money. So I'll take on anything I will whore myself out for. So,
well, looking at going through school and you didn't learn, it's basically like trial and error. It's like mess something up. Well, I'll have to go out and buy a new piece or figure out how I did it and do it again.
And most of my education was, does this fit here? Yes, all right, then that must be where it goes.
Square peg, round hole.
Round hole stuff.
That's kind of how I started was when, I don't remember how long ago it was now at this point, but when I got my first computer tower, my brother got it to me and he was like, just go to town. He's like, anything you break, we can fix. We can put the new OS on it. We can swap parts. Like, it doesn't matter. So just play. And that was kind of just how I learned.
Yeah, I feel like unless you get that formal education through some kind of college program, which I attempted to do at the illustrious ITT Tech, if you guys still want to sign up for it, you have to go back to 2009.
Tampa Tech.
And that got me in nowhere fast, except for a huge student loan. So
you could
still paying that one off. Yeah, so.
But I mean, in high school and stuff, it wasn't really technical wise, it wasn't here's a computer and how to fix it or how to work it. It was more I remember in middle school is how to pirate video games, how to copy on was it SimCity and Oregon Trail onto your 3.5-inch floppies.
We had Quake Arena hidden on the school network, so that's what we played all the time in computer class in school. But even now, my niece who is just graduated and is going to college, she's already got 3 Microsoft certifications before she left high school. That's their main goal. She's certified in Office. She's certified in stuff and things. I have no idea because I pay no attention to my family at all. So I just know she said, I know Microsoft. And I said, well, that's good for you. So
I'll be calling you when I have questions.
Yeah, exactly.
It's where's this place? Where's the copy and paste on the ribbon? It's I'm looking at Office 365. I don't know where it is now. But yeah, it's one of those things where we didn't know what anything was going on. That was at the time where it was starting to grow, computers and stuff, or any kind of science-based kind of education was starting to grow.
Yeah, that was when most of the education system, you knew who was going to go into that field as whether or not you're not debating Spock or Picard or you were
who would win in a fight, Spock or Picard?
Exactly.
Kirk. Star Wars, you Star Trek people.
Listen, you can love both, man. I'm not going to lie. I've been working from home has learned me how to binge watch professionally, and I have watched a Star Trek way too many times. And
you've gone through all the original, the Next Generation, Voyager, DS9.
And I've learned that Data says that he's an android at least once every episode. That's my thing. And Riker doesn't know how to sit in chairs correctly. That's the thing I've learned from watching these episodes.
He's got to spin it around.
He's got to spin around and straddle it, and he just oozes sexuality, and that's why I think Cliff looks exactly like Riker. So
he also
oozes sexuality.
The Picard tuck, or the tug.
Yeah, the tuck shirt. And I find myself doing that all the time.
You sit down.
Just sit there. It's a power move. It really is. So.
Number one,
you found that Quark is actually the best Star Trek character out of all of them.
See,
I think it's Odo.
Odo, you think? See, I'm a huge Tuvok fan. I'm a gigantic Tuvok fan, and I love Tim Russ in everything that he is. I get way too excited about that. I'm like, hey, that's Tupac, so that's excellent.
You let a little girl squeal?
Yeah, a little bit.
Thank you, I couldn't do it.
Oh, why not? Everyone can do it. Come on, do it. Do it. Do it.
We're getting off the rails.
That leads us into the insanity of artificial intelligence and STEM and all that stuff. That is the main focus in almost every educational program that I've seen.
And toys, like even kids' toys for my daughter at like 2 years old, 3 years old. They've got this new thing. It's like a STEM science lab now that you can do like mix chemicals and all that stuff.
Well, I've seen
It's just called meth.
I've seen the Harry Potter where you create your own. You put together your wand, and you can put like little programming on the iPad and stuff, and you flick and you do Luminosa, and it'll do something on the iPad. And so all these kits are coming out.
Yeah, Lego's been getting big into it too recently.
Like we have Dash and Dot at our house, which is a little robot that teaches the fundamentals of programming. We had my stepson, and my stepdaughter was getting into it, and now she's not. She's actually into 3D modeling more than anything else. But that Dash and Dot thing was super, super cool because it does help you. And, you know, I learned stuff by just using it, and I hate programming with the passion of 1,000 suns. I was like, well, I made the robot turn around and beeps at me, so I felt really excited about that.
Well, it's like an accomplishment, like woo!
But that's, and you know, it's what they're teaching in what we call magnet schools now. They have tons of those programs out, and you know, the kids love it, and especially my stepson who's into video games. He thinks it's just some kind of magic that happens. And what we did was I started teaching him a little bit about 3D modeling and a little bit about programming. And now he's understanding like why a game, like I've been addicted to Assassin's Creed lately, Odyssey. I'm like, dude, don't give me that crap. Listen, I got Fallout 76 pre-ordered. It's already ready to go on the Xbox when it comes out. So
you guys pre-order games? Ew.
76 I would, just because I can't
it's
not.
Fallout.
And it comes out early for us Xbox users.
Us console people.
But now
what are you doing here? Go away.
Like I kicked
Console peasants.
The best part of the game is a great educational moment for my stepson, which is you can Sparta kick guys off of anything. Cow, like you find a bear you don't like in the middle of the woods, and there's a cliff. There's nothing but fun to be had. Because now you can Spartan kick. But now I'm like, listen, this is a physics engine. Somebody had to figure out how does a bear react when you kick it off of a cliff? Like
and then what it interacts with, and
like all of a sudden it hits a tree. Does it wrap around the tree? Does it bounce off the tree? And
ragdoll physics are the best. and I remember when it first came out, I was like, "What is this?" It's like,
the craziness.
That's half the fun. But there's somebody that has to program that, and I think that's a great way to show them, like, you're into this.
Yeah,
you can work in this. You can make this. You can make money doing this.
But I have to caution: game development is not the best market to go into the job wise.
We're talking about IT jobs being saturated and tough. That's a whole
we used to see what Telltale Carbine Studios, all these small but successful ish studios is dying because mismanagement or just oversaturation of market out there. That's just, there's way too many game developers, and it's being outsourced or not. I should say, like the big studios like EA and BioWare, they're kind of like looking at the best of the best, but we're not going to pay as well. Long hours.
Yeah.
It's not the best environment to actually function in.
Well, not only that, it's the largest entertainment industry in the world.
Yes.
I mean, what did it... Grand Theft Auto 5, the first 24 hours that it came out, it made something like $3.8 billion in the first 24 hours.
And that's being overshadowed by Fortnite, just selling skins and all that sorts of stuff.
You're talking about microtransactions, but these are... you don't put out a good product.
Yeah.
That's the entire death of your company.
Yes.
Because you sink so much man hours, money, all this stuff, you know, and all of a sudden you don't perform or you get a bad name for your company, that you're done.
That's why I think a lot of indie games are starting to become big, because a lot of those people that used to work for those big companies now build themselves something in their own time, put it out there, and kind of make, you know, small Xbox store, PSN store, you know, or Steam store.
Well, there's a whole market
dollars,
for that.
But it's all demand, it's all word of mouth at that point, and that's where you make your money.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, okay, so you do create a great product. You know, we live in the world of remakes, reimagining, and sequels.
Yes.
And it's like, at this point, do you want to sink that money into or break the hearts of people that love your product? Like, okay, let's talk about, oh my God, I just had a Half-Life. Half-Life 3. Been waiting on that for the last 10 years.
Right here.
Yeah.
Half-Life 3 coming out next year.
You heard it.
You know, everybody, this famous saying is Steam can't, Valve can't count to 3, you know.
Or was it Left 4 Dead, I think?
Left 4 Dead 2, and then that stopped right there. It's still a phenomenal game. I play it occasionally on the Xbox Live. Because you can download it. It's great. But they can't count to 3, and I think that's because they make such phenomenal games that they can't screw it up.
Well, it's just because of the moneymaker. It's like, okay, we can do a reboot. This was a great game, 10, 20 years ago, not even. Let's go ahead and do it again. Instead of doing original content that would take longer, spend more money, more development time that might or might not work.
Yeah. And I know Joe busts my chops for Assassin's Creed, and there's no love lost. Like, I know when it's a bad game. I know when it's a bad game. But, you know, one of the things that they did, and I think this is also going to be the same thing with Fallout 76, is that they're shaking it up. The new Assassin's Creed game, Joe, I think, would actually enjoy, because it's not like any Assassin's Creed game that I've ever played.
I haven't played Assassin's Creed in forever, and I just remember the controls were horrible.
The controls they fixed a lot, because there's a lot of little micro movements and everything like that you have to do. But they are willing to change up the platform. Like, it's a lot less stealth. You could still choose stealth, but you can create, it's like an RPG where you can create a warrior class guy. You can just go in there and just start. Can I curse on this podcast? No, not at all.
No.
Unacceptable.
Family stop.
It's because there's a little kid on your logo.
Apple.
Apple. This is you have no idea how hard this is going to be for me. Is that
yes, we do.
Yes, you're enjoying that one too much.
Watching you squirm.
But you can really go in there and just start Sparta kicking people in the face all the time, and it's great. It's entertaining, but it's not like any Assassin's Creed game I've ever played. But they're willing to mix that up. And I feel the same way with Fallout 76. Everybody's scared out of their mind about the multiplayer aspect of it. I'm actually excited about it, but they're willing to mix it up.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was, and I know you sent it to me. There was the video of the what the guy learned after playing it that came out, and that helped me a little bit. The fact that there was like the pacifist mode and there's stuff like that. So there is still playability. It's going to be interesting though, because the thing I liked about Fallout 4 so much was kind of the story and being able to follow along and in the different paths you could take.
You mean the search for your son that you forgot 20 minutes into the game because you just started
collecting things.
I need a pencil. Like, that's
a piece of candy. A piece of candy.
How does this pencil give me 2 wood?
But a tree only gives me 1. I don't understand.
It's
and no lead.
It's refined.
It's very compact wood. It weighs 30 pounds.
But it's going back, because with the development or learning how to code, it's a lot of it is now more easier because there are now apps and stuff.
Some of it's drag and drop.
Well, no.
Try to write old HTML code, and meanwhile you can go ahead and download an app that does it for you automatically.
It's all WYSIWYG. You move the term robot and then slide that over, and it's like, okay. So no, you don't think it's any easier?
There are languages that are easier, but I wouldn't say coding in general has gotten easier.
Well, especially for you now, you're a couple months, half a year, or a year of coding. You're neck deep in it.
I wouldn't say neck deep. I'm getting to the surface. I'm about diving down. I'm about 3 feet down.
You're like slowly walking into the pool.
I'm just now realizing how deep that ocean is.
That's one of the reasons why I touched it once and never touched it again. Like, that's.
And see, I'm a sadist, maxist, whatever. I actually enjoy it.
Well, he doesn't have to talk to people, so it's nice. Great. My girlfriend, who also works with Joe in the app development department of our company, she is the same way. She is the homebody. I am the extrovert. So what? Yes, I know.
Say no more.
It's like the complete opposite of Joe and Susie. So,
but it's when you look at C++, Python, Java, and all that. Look, what do you work in?
Keep on. I want to hear where you're going with this.
Well, no, it's basically looking at how it's grown up from QBasic, Pascal, or any kind of. I'm trying to pull names out of my butt here.
Well, I mean,
Flash.
it really depends. I think a lot of the stuff now is more Python, Ruby, especially for the video game side of it. I think they use those kinds of languages. Your C++, that's actually old now. What you were talking about as being old, that's actually old. Now you're more onto your C sharp.
Go home, Grandpa.
Well, no, it's not that. It's not like it's ages, but it's already moved beyond that already. And now you're in C sharp, and I think there's already a new one on top of it that they're already starting to go towards. A lot of Java.
Well, there's a lot of like the mobile type stuff is going more Java. That's where the market's going to. I mean,
because you know how secure Java is.
Oh yeah, I mean.
Well, and here's the other side of it, especially in the app development side of things, is say for instance you have Azure, Microsoft, anything that's based in the cloud, or even Office 365. Where very simple programs can be created through like something like Flow,
right?
Which is it's workflows. It's basically if and end statements, but you can do anybody can do that very basic programming through that. So to be, I feel like a profitable programmer, you have to have that deep knowledge of what's something beyond something that they can do in Flow or something like that. So,
well, it was actually kind of how it was explained to me when I first talked to the VP of our department about moving over into app dev. He was like, basically take something as mundane and as simple as brushing your teeth and write out an entire process flow for what you have to do to brush your teeth, all the way down to the mundane. He was like, write that. He was like, if you can do that, then you can do programming. And you think, oh, well, that's easy. And then you actually get into it and you start, if you truly have the developer mindset, you start questioning, well, exactly where do I need to stop? Because it's really easy to say, okay, pick up toothbrush, put toothbrush, at a horizontal level, squeeze toothpaste, but then you start going, okay, well, do I need to go open index finger, open middle finger? Like how deep do I really need to go with these instructions?
Right.
That's also your programming, because you have your simple stuff, like you were talking about your process flow, where it's just take hand, grab toothbrush.
Yeah.
All of that has programming behind it to do all those individual things, or you go into the actual granular aspect where you're talking about each individual finger. You know what I mean? Going from there.
Then you dive into about how much pressure and hold on.
Yes, all of that. So it's how, if you want to know if you have that kind of programming mindset, the thought of even just writing a list step process, if it seems fun and intriguing, like, oh, I wonder what that's actually like, and you start even in your head, like even if you're listening to this and you start running through like, oh, you would do this, that's a programming mindset. Right. You would actually enjoy it. If just the thought of this, just hearing this right now is boring you, and it's just
you're ridiculous, that 15-second fast forward.
Don't bother with programming.
What just happened? I have no.
You might want to skip to like 24, 23 minutes.
I'm sorry, I just passed out for a second. What the hell?
But that's why it could actually be intriguing for kids, though, and why it's easier to bring kids into it is because they're already learning all of these things. For what we take for granted as simple as brushing your teeth. You have to teach them how to brush teeth. You know what I mean? So they're already learning the steps that are involved and what happens when you miss a step or what you need to do for this step or this. So it's actually easier to bring them in at that point. But the problem is I think that focusing on programming is actually bad, because it's going to become another just standard IT job. It's going to become an oversaturated field. And again, kind of where we go when we started with this, we need to encourage and show all the other things, your plumbers, your electricals, your carpenters, all your, as we said, blue collar type jobs, that those can be just as intriguing and fun and how profitable.
Oh, yeah.
What I mean?
Look at if the world all of a sudden just suddenly stops, or we get EMP like at the end of Escape from Los Angeles. The world is like
deep cut, bro. Yeah, deep John Carpenter cut. I appreciate that.
The world is now cut off of any kind of electronics. Where back in the Middle Ages, you have to have plumbers, carpenters. You have to have those skills because everybody poops. You're not going to be.
I've heard there's books on this, but I've yet to see
it.
You need proof, don't you?
And as a side note, as a cinephile as I am, nobody in my family, my new family, likes movies. Well, they like movies, but like not as much as me.
Yeah.
I appreciate the John Carpenter.
Well, I was like, okay, what kind of like EMP, like global Escape from Los Angeles? It was cheesy, but it was also good. It was
Oh no! If the EMP ever goes off and mass hysteria, cats and dogs getting along together, will ever happen? Thank you. What's going? Somebody gets my references here.
I'll get that reference.
One of the problems is like America is screwed. Like the only people that are going to survive the apocalypse are the Amish, because they're like, well, it's no different than yesterday.
It's just another Tuesday.
No, you're going to have some areas of like your rural Tennessee and the woods.
Those guys.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I live near those guys. I get it.
You're close. But
you need to go down a couple hundred miles north.
I'll tell you something.
Ocala is starting to become a little hipsterish.
It is a little hipsterish. There's like 5 of us now, which is huge. But
there goes the neighborhood.
There's a lot of innovation there. I don't know if you heard recently in the news that they had a drive-by meth lab that got shut down in Ocala. Somebody actually put a sliding glass little door in their trailer, and that's where they were shoving meth out to people. And the cops pretty much rolled up and said, we want some meth. They opened up the window and they put their arm out, and then the handcuff came out. Like, this is weird.
They tried taking Breaking Bad to the next level.
Pretty much.
So you need to go out to the desert. I mean, it doesn't work in the middle of like...
Well, they did, but then they had to distribute it, and they figured, why distribute out of another place when it's already in a portable place?
True. Listen, it's going to be like Uber Eats in a little while.
That's another thing.
Yeah. So
it's a courier meth. But yeah, going back to like, the devs and look at like robotics and stuff and 3D printing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's now gotten to a point where it's more affordable. Mm-hmm. Like 3D printers are, when they first came out, they're crazy expensive.
Very.
Yeah.
Now you can get
one was like $1,000.
Yeah. Now you can get a good one, a decent one for like monoprice for like what, $200-$300.
Yeah.
Not even.
Well, that comes up to another problem that a lot of, unfortunately, this is going to sound horrible, but a lot of STEM education kind of paints you in a corner.
Yeah.
And it's this area where I've had to become an expert in the last years is automation and artificial intelligence. And you look at an industry like, all right, let's go into like car mechanics.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay, you need an alternator for your geometric convertible.
Yes.
Little 3-banger. You can power with a 9-volt battery, but you need an alternator. Right? Back in the day, you think, all right, what does it take for a mechanic to get that alternator? There's a bare minimum 30 jobs that are included in getting you that alternator. You're talking about the sales rep that you talk to, you talk about the warehouse, you talk about the manufacturer, you talk about the delivery guy, you talk about all these different systems.
The backbone of America, the truck drivers.
The truck driver, and that's another industry. That's an industry that's going to quite possibly be lost in the next 10 years, and that's 3.5 million jobs in the United States alone. Due to automatic tractor trailers and stuff like that.
And we've seen it with like the Tesla semi.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And now Volvo's creating a semi that doesn't even have a compartment. It's a thin slab.
Look at
that
the movie Logan.
Yeah,
it's just basically like sleds going down the road, like beep 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 beep.
And that's what they look. That's what the Volvo one looks like. But that is a 3D printer. If you can get a 3D printer to not only create a shell for that alternator, but doing all the wiring work and everything like that, printing that out. That's 30 jobs gone right
within
there.
5 years, let's say.
Yeah, and you know, okay, so that's a $1 million investment for your company, but now you never have to buy.
Well, look at NASA is actually
or healthcare or nothing like that for those people.
No, the machine doesn't have to do it perfectly. It just has to do it better and cheaper than you can.
Yeah. Well, I think JPL or some outside source is actually. They created a 3D printer of doing the rocket flares, the flaring for the rocket motors to do a 3D printing instead of machining of aluminum or whatever they're made of. The screw of people, all their jobs are gone because you got a printer doing this within less than a month. It can do one thing. You have all these people do it, maybe less time, but you have probably imperfections and stuff like that.
Then there's also the aspect of complexity. About 3-4 years ago, I read an article of a robotics circuit board designing. Like they programmed an AI to build circuit boards, and they put it on the lowest setting of the AI and had it build a circuit board to do something simple. The complexity of the circuit board on the lowest design that there was like 3 or 4 engineers could not figure out how the circuit board worked. It worked, but they could not figure it out because it was too complex for them that the AI built on its lowest setting. So it's like, you put that on the high like it's not going to be doable. So when you think, again, we go into all these AI aspects of it and you go, okay, well, yeah, it's simple, it's going to get done, but then you're starting to add, what else can it do, or how complex can it do it, to the point that just even human interaction with it is going to become almost undoable.
Yeah, because one problem we're probably already seeing now is that the people are not understanding how things work. They know how to turn things on and off, or if it's broken, I'll just go get a new one.
If you're lucky, they know how to turn it on and
off. And I'm a big fan of the show Parts Unknown with Anthony Bourdain. And one of the things that I've learned from watching this is that hipsters are going to save the world. And hear me out on this one. So, so one of the things that are constantly
typewriters.
So one of the things is they keep on going over, these traditional places that, like the last one I watched was they were in Italy and they were showing like, this is how we make real balsamic vinegar, and it's for one barrel of it takes 20 years to ferment correctly, and all this artisanal stuff that goes on with it. And they're like, well, nobody in our family wants to do this because they all want to be CEOs of company, or they want to be an IT guy, or they want to be a programmer, or
we can have a robot doing half the time,
or they want to have a podcast, or so with tens of listeners.
That's a good thing.
But one of the things, the only people that are saving that stuff is weirdly hipsters, And once we kind of lose that part of us, this traditional way of doing things, what happens after that?
Well, look at maker fairs. These groups of people that come together, they have the old way of doing stuff and new way of doing things, and they come together in like harmony. But they're kind of teaching the kids and people coming in that want to learn how to do some of this stuff. Like, okay, you can have this flaming dragon that's made out of aluminum or sheet metal, but how do you do it? Yeah. So they go back and do the blacksmithing and all that sorts of stuff. Instead of, let's get this part from a 3D printer. They're more of like the hands-on kind of like your skills, like you do it yourself.
Yeah.
So let me ask, because I don't know if maybe it's just the way I'm looking at the way this episode's going so far or not. Are we against STEM? Because the way we've been talking up to this point is we're kind of complaining about how fast and how far things are going.
Well, this is once again became old men yelling at the clouds.
No,
it's going to be my driver's license photo. I want that so bad.
What it is I think it's because we look at it one way and that it could potentially be like a dangerous Wall-E kind of situation where we're all floating around in our...
See, you say dangerous. How is that dangerous, though? Because I've had this argument with other people where, to me, there's nothing wrong with that society.
No, and I think it would take a huge psychological adjustment for most people to think like, okay, the job that I used to have, we'll go with like, all right, coal industry. Coal industry is... Nobody's getting those jobs back. Those are all automated now through machines, but everybody's fighting for it because that's what my grandfather did it. My great grandfather did it. He died. Everybody died of black lung. God damn it, I'm proud of it.
It's my heritage.
It was like he was all.
If you don't have black lung, you're not part of this family.
He reached to the ripe old age of 35 years old. But it's one of those things where I think it's not a bad. I think it's an inert thing where it's us that have to adjust to this new way of life.
Right. Well, we're all part of a generation that grew up from that transitional area from let's say pre-Jurassic era.
pre the internet.
Yeah, pre-internet. And growing
before the
up
tubes.
Into the intertubes.
Yeah.
Now, your stepkids, my daughter, your daughter, are growing up like full-fledged within the Matrix, pretty much.
Oh, they're plugged in.
Oh,
from birth.
Like I have Android Auto in my car, and my stepdaughter will just sit there and ask it questions. Like she'll be like, "How far is the moon?" The moon's blah 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 blah. And it's like, do I smell funny? And they say, no, you don't. I smell funny, but that's fine.
My daughter, she has Siri say my name is Poopy Doop. She changed the names all the time. It's like, hey Siri, what's my name? And it goes, well, since we're friends, I'll call you Poopy Doops. She understands. She talks like to the technology. It's like common knowledge.
And I'm not comfortable enough yet with like the Google Home, the Alexa, and all that. Like,
it's a deep state conspiracy.
No, I'm not to that. Not to that extent.
Alex Jones.
What was
Infowars / Hillary's Clinton.
the joke? There was like a meme out there where it was like back in like the 50s where they were. Oh no, they're listening to you on the phones to.
Oh yeah.
To now it's. Hey, NSA,
hey, big brother, what's the?
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge psychological shift to being like, one of the things that when I talk about automation and AI to older generations, it is a thing that they can't really comprehend is, like, what do you mean I won't have a mechanic? What do you mean cars will be driving themselves down the street? That scares the living daylights out of me. And I'm like, listen, you know what scares the crap out of me? Trucker speed. Like, that's what, guys hopped up on blue meth driving down the road. Cause
they gotta get that next 8 hours.
They gotta make that 60 cents a mile, like that's what they're going for. And, the machine doesn't have that.
Well, it's also because if we go back and like self-driving cars are more safer.
Yeah.
Because you don't have people falling asleep at the wheel. You don't have people road raging or constantly on their phone.
Distracted driving.
They are definitely more safer. I'm not arguing that, but I don't think they are technically safer until they are all self-driving. Because as soon as you add a human element,
once you had
they cannot
that
understand the logic of how that car is driving, and it's just going to be in their way.
Well, because the cars be like bumper to bumper, and then because
they can be.
We talked about before in previous episodes where like if something happened like a mile down the road, that chain of command would be down the traffic, be like,
Correct.
okay, let's go slow down. You got Susie talking on her phone.
She's always
all of a sudden she's not paying attention.
Women be talking.
Well, all of a sudden, slam at the back of the car. Now you got wrecked, and all of a sudden, another chain of events further down.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where the human variable is completely random against like the cold AI.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's heartbreaking for me as a car guy to be like, at some point, I might not be able to drive my own car. Like.
It's interesting because, yes, I agree with you on that because I also really enjoy being able to drive a car to feel the feeling of the car. I miss a stick shift, but at times in traffic, it's just not feasible.
See, I work from home, so I don't have traffic. It's nice.
Well, like a stick shift to the millennial anti-theft device.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's worked.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I love that feeling. But as we get older, as we become the true grumpy old men, you start to lose that ability to drive. You think of a lot of those, especially being where we live in Florida, you see a lot of the gray-haired knuckles out on the road.
So screw that, I'm staying 25 until I die.
And it's scary. You start to worry about it. Well, if you get to a point of self-driving cars, they still have that freedom to go anywhere they want safely because all they have to do is get in the back seat of the car and it'll take them where they're going.
Well, look at, let's take Uber and Lyft. Uber more to the point where they're going to the self-driving vehicle, taking the driver out completely. Yeah, you still call up your Uber driver, your Uber car, I should say, on your app, and you can get in your car, and it'll take you wherever you need to go.
Yep.
But that's again more jobs leaving the area or leaving the industry because you got the Uber drivers, they're making pennies on the penny. Driving these people around, and then all of a sudden, well, we don't need you anymore.
I drove Uber for a couple of months after I got my new car, basically because the payment is stupid.
Yeah, I looked at it too.
I'm an idiot. No, I mean I love my car. It's fine. But we have two new cars, and my theory was at least one of these cars have to be paying for himself because we have a Jeep which we want to upgrade, and I have my GTI which I want to upgrade. And I'm like, somebody's got to be making us money for this stuff. It's a horrible addiction. But you depending on where you are, like up in Ocala, I could sit there for 5 hours and make $30. You know, or I come down to Tampa and I make $30.
But then you're paying in gas. Coming back.
Going back and forth from Gainesville and stuff, so it becomes a zero sum. But like, you know, I spend a couple of days here in the Tampa Bay area and I make $200, $300. You know.
But then you also got to add into wear and tear costs in your vehicle.
That's why I got that 3-year unlimited maintenance. So I'll drive this thing into the ground.
That's okay.
You can edit that out.
I can edit that out.
Hey, if I get one, this has been a success for me. So
we'll allow you that one.
No,
at the same time, though, the aspect that we're looking at this, everything we're considering with all these jobs lost, we're looking at the fact of, okay, so that means they've lost the jobs. That means they're not making money, but they still need to be able to eat. They need to do things. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to the argument of the Wall-E type existence, if all of that is just given to you, mm-hmm. because everything is automated, everything is AI, everything is just done, there's no need for a human interaction. So if you want something, you just get it.
Well, then we'll go into the Star Trek mindset, or like the future, where you're not working to make stuff or do things. You're actually now working to increase your
it's a better society.
Yes.
Then that's the whole motivation in Star Trek.
To
the
make,
next generation.
To make yourself better.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, like even right now, certain states are experimenting with a stipend for their citizens. Like even Texas is saying, like, you know, we'll give you $30,000 a year just to basically exist. And it's a model that more countries and more governments are looking towards, because they see this coming down.
Not here in America.
Well, Texas, you got to think it's super.
That's not America.
The stars are bright in Texas. But it's one of these things where these governments are now looking at this because they see the writing on the wall, where they're like, all right, in X amount of years, this industry is just not going to exist the way that it is. So do we take that money that would be lost and kills the economy? No one's buying anything. And do we just give them like $30,000 a year? Everybody as a stipend, a government stipend. And it's an experiment that other smaller countries have tried out with some success.
Okay.
But, you know, is this quite possibly because everything becomes automated, because there's no real industries anymore?
It's the human element.
It's the human element of it. Like, how do you take care of your citizens when everything is done by robots?
It's done for you. You don't have to do it. You don't have to lift a finger.
We have a Mr. Handy that's, you know, got a gigantic turbine cooking your floors all the time, which no one ever notices in Fallout. Like, there should be scorch marks all over your floor. Like, that thing's got a jet engine coming out its butt. Like, I didn't say the A word. See, I'm getting better.
They built Mr. Handy to be capable for the mass populace. Mm-hmm. The flooring can handle it.
Yeah. It's a hardened floor.
Yeah, it's the future.
Yeah, it's the future.
No one's got carpet in those games.
It's the past future.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything looks like in the 50s, but
but
it's one of those things is where we have to, like, the future generations, like our kids going to have to look at, say, what are they going to do? The schooling is going to be completely different. I mean, it's just not going to look at like reading. You still have to read.
Yeah, you'll still have reading. You'll still have mathematics.
Yeah, the Common Core, but that whole bane of existence of that.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do anything. You don't have to learn anything unless you come from a society or from a rural area that doesn't have like a city type influence where you're farming. Even then, you still have to do. Let's take a look at farming.
Has a lot of robotics in it.
Yeah, that's what I actually want to go into, because the whole thing with John Deere now, because their combines are completely self-sustained or self-attained, where you don't have to actually work on it yourself. Mm-hmm. And farmers are actually pushing back because they're getting sued from John Deere from actually breaking their stuff and DRM and all that stuff.
Yeah. And even in the industry that I work in, is that a lot of like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like, we were doing work for a vineyard, and that uses all IoT. Like, there are, like, they know exactly the amount of nitrates that are in the ground. They know exactly when to pick their grapes. They have machines now that can pick the grapes for them, and it's almost a complete automated system with everything from business intelligence, where they can say like, all right, this was our yield this year. We know around the holidays we sell a lot more wine
because of the holidays. Yeah.
Because of the holidays and everything like that. These have to be fermented at this certain time. The vats have to be cleaned out at this certain time, and they already know what their profit and loss margin is going to be a year in advance. So even farmhands
they're not gone.
They're gone in a lot of areas
because you don't need people out there actually picking the grapes anymore.
Yeah,
or doing the testing on the soil and all that sorts of stuff.
So, do we think this drive for the current generation for STEM? Do we think that is going to be going to the wayside, or do you think that is in order to further the path we are currently on with this whole automation and robotics? Because to me, that's where it kind of seems like, because that's where we're headed. So they're pushing STEM so the generations grow up more advanced in the thought process of STEM to push generations further from that even more towards that Wall-E kind of.
Well, you'll still need the people to actually repair, fix
for now.
That's
going to change and can very easily.
Well, not only that, but how many people do you need to fix these robots all the time? You don't
let's
need
say
35 million of them.
Yeah, let's say 35 million. You maybe need 1,000 people total.
Yeah.
Again, I don't even know if you would even need that, because I mean, look at automotive industry. Most of the automotive industry for years now has been robots that have been putting these cars together on assembly lines with very few human interactions for some of the smaller details.
Yeah.
Well, robotics is getting to a point where it can absolutely handle those smaller details with no problem.
Because robotics, they still have with the finer, like the hand and finger gesturing. We're trying to get something in like small details.
Correct.
But Boston Dynamics, let's just point that out.
the people that are going to rule the earth in a couple of years.
The
so I'm preparing my kids for the Mad Max apocalypse. Like, I don't care about STEM. Like, that's I need to teach them how to kill somebody with a spear. So, like, that's
survival instincts and bug out.
You're just going to slowly get them used to radiation. So when the time comes,
I've been doing some amount. I've been taking apart smoke detectors and just putting a little piece of that plutonium they got in them inside their food.
That's all you need.
That third eye is coming in beautifully.
So what you
should
want?
See the color at night. It's awesome.
So you want more like the Fallout type universe?
Yeah. So, it is one of these things where how do you prepare this future that obviously is so up in the air right now with all the crazy things that are going on in the world, especially this world where automation takes over and robotics are the main industry and most of the driving force behind any economic superpower. Even war is automated. It's Skynet, but with a friendly smile. And a good PR department behind it.
Precisely. And it's like with the drone warfare and all that, because a lot of those are coming from the Xbox and gaming generation, because they had the hand-eye coordination to do this sorts of stuff. And it's no longer an old man's war.
Yeah. So it's the future for this is so much up in the air that I have no idea how to tell my kids, like, your boss is going to be a robot. They think it's cool, but
do you, seeing as the age that your stepkids are, do you try to encourage the STEM aspect of it, or do you also, like, as an or do you just focus on one area in regards to like your manual labor type jobs?
So, and that's a question I ask myself all the time, especially being in a unique position of being a step person in their lives, is what do I push on them? What do I don't push on them? And I have an amazing girlfriend that I'm not saying this because she will listen to podcasts, because I don't think she will.
She will listen to this? Oh, okay. Now we know how this goes.
now you guys got 11 listeners. This is great. But it's one of those things where she gives me the opportunity to be, I have a lot of input on the kids in the house and everything like that. And it's one of those things, like, my stepson is not interested in anything that has to do with physical labor. I'm a huge car guy. We've got these two cars that are begging to be like tinker with us. A Jeep is the worst car in the world to ever buy because you just want to add things to it all the time, and you're never happy with it. But my stepdaughter, for instance, like, it's wonderful because she's got small hands, so when I got to change out the lights in my car, she can fit her little hands in there, opposed to mine. But she's more interested in it than he is. His whole entire life is video games, and he wants to be YouTube famous, but doesn't know how YouTube works. He just thinks people just put videos online, and that's how they make instant fame, which I think is a distraction from the world of STEM and education as a whole. Like that's his concept of, I'm going to make Fortnite videos. All right, well, what are you going to do to make these Fortnite videos?
There's a whole process.
I go like, all right, look on YouTube. How many Fortnite videos are there? Well, there's 100 million. What's going to make people watch yours? And these are the kind of things where he's only interested in that stuff. He has no interest in anything mechanical, hands-on, woodworking, stuff like that. Like when I fix things around the house, I got to spend at least an hour and a half trying to convince him, like, no, you got to learn how to swing a hammer, buddy. You know. And then, but my stepdaughter's like, I'll grab the hammer. And I'm like, yeah, you too. Let's twice as work. This means I can just sit there and have a beer. Like, this is great. This
child labor is the reason.
Child labor is phenomenal.
That's why we should bring it back. It's child labor.
But we're pretty close. But
those kids are great in the coal mines. They get in the small places.
Yeah, again, the same reason why I have her change out the headlights in my car. She can fit her little hands in there and twist out the bulb. But I think that we focus a lot on STEM in schools to the detriment of other industries that we could be an economic powerhouse we once were, and we've kind of just offshot it to other countries because
it's easier, cheaper to do.
It's easier and cheaper. Like during the presidential campaign, one of the things that was said was, we're going to bring Apple, we're going to make Apple build iPhones in America again. And CNET did a study on, like, how much would that cost to do it in the United States? And they, to keep Apple as profitable as it has to be, like the cheapest iPhone at the time for you to buy, and I'm talking about like the color plastic ones at the time, like the iPhone 6Cs, they were like, it would cost $1,500. It would cost the consumer $1,500 if we paid minimum wage in the United States to build these iPhones in the United States. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, are you willing to pay that much money to have that industry come back to the United States? Are you happy with your $200 iPhone? You know, how do you level that out?
I think it's going to depend on the industry. If you're talking iPhone specifically, yes, they will pay it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, if you look at Apple, it's that whole cult of personality. It's like anything that they pump out, they can put out like a plastic piece of poop with the Apple logo and charge you $600 for it. Hey,
the Apple Pen's what? $400, like $200 for the Apple Pen? Like, it's a pen. Like, it's a stylus that has a lightning connector on it. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the industry. You do something like, we'll just say HP. Mm-hmm. If they try doing it, no, they're not going to pay that for HP. No,
because it's the whole, like, the value of brand. Yeah. It's like, what's the value of this particular brand? Is it HP? It's okay. They got some good stuff.
Which is ridiculous in itself, the value of brand.
Then you got Apple. Like, look at the MacBooks and Surface Books. Value to value. It's close, but one's more than the other. But it's a slim margin, but...
Well, and I think everybody's kind of guilty of that. Like, I moved over to... Project Fi a year ago, and I have a Pixel 2. And when I tell people, like, oh, I only pay like $80 a month for my cell phone, and they're like, oh, what crappy service do you have? Like, I got Project Fi, and they're like, well, do you get a signal? I'm like, I get signal here in 175 countries for no extra cost. And they're like, that doesn't sound right. I'm like, well, you can look at my bill. That's exactly what I pay. And it's, you know, and they're like, well, it's not an iPhone. And I'm like,
that's the point.
That's a little bit of the point. I've had iPhones. I love iPhones. I've had Nexuses and Samsungs and everything like that because I have a severe addiction to cell phones and smartwatches.
Join the club,
yeah. So, but one of the things that they're like, well, you know, you have this conversation with people like, well, an iPhone's better. Well, what is better about it? You know, and it's like, give me an example. Well, it takes amazing photos. Well, mine takes better photos.
Yeah, and I think like the Pixel 2, and maybe even the Pixel 3 have better cameras than the newer iPhones.
Oh yeah, they've done the head.
And that's
comparison.
with one lens.
Yeah, with
you
one
got
lens.
the two.
But it's this idea that it is the best.
Yeah,
and
it's a status symbol. That,
It is.
Look at me, I have the latest iPhone.
Well, they did crazy studies like when the iPhone, a couple of years ago with the iPhone, they showed that like this is back when it was BlackBerry, Windows Phone, flip phones, and everything like that. And they showed like people with iPhones get laid more. Like it's like because they have an iPhone. But now you look back on it, like I asked one of my female friends, like, would you ever date a guy with a flip phone? They're like, hell no, I wouldn't date a guy with a flip phone. What's wrong with that guy? It must be a drug dealer. It's a burner phone. Like that's the first place that I go when I see
Zach Morris phones like back in the day. It's like, oh, that's a drug dealer. That's the only people that can afford those.
He's got a burner. Like that guy obviously has a feature phone, as they call it now. But it's that kind of concept.
Now, looking at schools and stuff and closing it out, is that would you want to see like automotive class, shop class, all like the blue collar type?
I think they absolutely should, in my opinion. I think
it's one of those things that you should add to STEM, to all around type of knowledge that you should have.
Yes.
Yeah, correct. I think it should. I think they shouldn't pigeonhole themselves, because even those industries, automotive is a perfect example of this. Is that you actually kind of have to have a computer engineering degree to work. I mean,
nowadays, yeah.
I'm looking to get an ECU upgrade for my car, and everything, like every review that I saw is it. I have a GTI, I have a brand new GTI, and everybody says like this one upgrade for $600 gives you an extra 100 horsepower and an extra 100 pound-feet of torque. Like that, you don't need to have.
Yeah. You don't need to bore out.
You don't need to bore things out. You don't have to put in a new air intake. You don't have to. It is literally just taking a chip, unbolting it from the console, and plugging it back in, plugging in a new one, and you've got sub 5 second car. Like, and that used to take. You
would have to like bore out like your headers and do all the sorts of stuff. And
you would have to put in a whole new intake and everything like that. But you can get that extra 100 horsepower by just switching out a computer
plugging
component.
a chip. Yeah.
So
I think it's one of those things where it's nice that we're doing STEM, but we have to add it to what's the word, like not real world, but.
You talked about blue collar jobs.
Yeah.
You have to have the option to have blue collar jobs.
Expand your knowledge base to where, because at the time of like middle school to high school, it's just, the kids don't know what they're doing. They don't.
I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm 35 years old. I don't know my elbow.
But when you go into college, you're kind of like, okay, I want to do this type of thing, and you kind of direct yourself into that particular path.
Yeah.
I think that they're going down the same path that they went with us, just with a different subject. Like kind of like what we talked about earlier, where when we were in high school, it was all about being the CEOs, being the executives, being that kind of high end
future leaders of America.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they took away a lot of the blue collar aspect to it. Now it's not necessarily blue collar, but it's STEM, and it's the science, the mathematics, and the robotics, and and all that stuff. They're still not focusing on what it takes to run the country and all, like we're talking about the blue collar, the backbone of America. Like they need to widen the horizon and make school about, instead of it being about test, it needs to be about surviving.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like some of the people that I still keep in touch with from high school, some of the most successful people I keep in touch with from high school, which means when I keep in touch, I mean, I see their photos on Instagram, is the guys that decided to start their own business, doing arborists or owning a mechanic shop. Those are the most successful people that I know that I graduated with. It's not the guys who, for instance, Joe and I, pretty much just corporate white-collar workers, like those guys probably make a lot more money than we do. I know that much. Like they drive way nicer cars than I do.
Yeah.
And they post on Facebook what they're doing and Instagram, and it's like they love their jobs. They're doing exactly what they want to do. And I think a lot of people that focused on very industry specific white collar jobs are in the same position that we are in, which is you just clock in, you do your work, you leave.
Do your 9 to 5, you're like...
You do your 9 to 5, and you make a little money, you know? And I'm not saying we make bad money by any stance of the imagination, but it's one of those things like those guys who do those blue-collar work, you know, they're doing exactly what they love. They do exactly what they want to do. It's not the same plugging away every day. But they're, you know, and they're making a lot more money. And I think that's the misconception of a lot of people is that to make money, you need to go into the STEM field.
Right.
And it's a huge misconception.
Well, it's as with most things, they're looking at the extreme end. Because yes, there is people out there that do what we do, or you know, that do those kinds of jobs that are making great money. But they're also the names. They're the people that everyone know. They're the exception to the rule.
Right.
They're
looking at like, well, I can be the Bill Gates of my generation, but it's like you think that's only like 1 out of a billion chance that would happen. What if Bill Gates actually stayed in college? Yeah, he wouldn't be heading up Microsoft. He'd be like some regular Joe Schmo working at Kinko's or something.
Yeah. Or very easily, Microsoft could have failed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we talk about it because, yes, it did succeed, but it could have just as easily failed and no one would be talking about it.
Exactly.
Look at MySpace. That's...
My what?
My Friendster?
You mean that thing Justin Timberlake owns?
Listen, you guys can find me at GeoCities. It's fine. But... It is this idea that to make money, you have to be a white-collar worker. You have to be the CEO of a company. And tech industry rises and falls like tomorrow. Like, you look at former companies like you look at Ford. Ford's been around for over 100 years, right, in some form or fashion. And they've been able to adapt and overcome. I don't think tech industries can adapt and overcome as well as those industries can.
Yeah, they're not as nimble as... Look at World War II.
Yeah.
They can pretty much take an assembly line, assembling cars, overnight all of a sudden starts making planes and bombers and
tanks
stuff.
And stuff like that.
But I don't think Siemens Tech would have as much... or they would have as much trouble trying to do the same kind of situation, because... that whole assembly line of like tech-wise, they would have to completely do new programming, work out the bugs and stuff like that.
It would be easier in the tech industry. It's easier to just drop something and start fresh than it is to take what you currently have and mold it to a new thing.
Okay.
Well, not only that, but you also have the security of your users to think about. Like, all right, let's use a perfect example: the Ford Pinto. That blew up if you looked at it the wrong way, right?
Literally.
Ford is still around. They're not making cars anymore, other than the Mustang after next year.
Crowd killers?
Yeah, but those... Yeah, crowd killers, exactly. It's one of those things where you look at it, and that didn't destroy their company. But if there's a huge data breach on Facebook, which is easier than a lot of people want to admit to happen. Like, it's happened. It's already happened.
It has.
And because we don't really talk about it, that's the only reason why I think people don't leave in mass exodus.
Because they say, what if I do leave Facebook? How am I going to get in contact with my friends and family?
Well, yeah, I was going to say there's the aspect of how integrated society is into it. A Pinto, you could just as easily go, nope, I'm going to go buy this other, hatchback over here.
Yeah.
Whereas Facebook... where are you going to go? Google Plus?
You can always go to
next year.
You can always get a gremlin. Like that's, yeah.
So the society and the world's very integrated into these things. So yes, there's a data breach. I can't do anything about it because I can't go anywhere else and get the same thing.
Yeah, you can only mitigate as much damage as it can happen to you.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. And it's. I think that is one of the things that I think that industry teeter-totters on. If Azure goes down all of a sudden and it starts costing companies money, people aren't going to go to Azure anymore. Microsoft now has this cloud of doubt over their secure systems.
Well, Azure goes away and the new whatever is going to come out. And
you mean like Edge? Like they're going to move over to Edge?
What's this Edge you speak of? Oh, that's the thing that when I upgraded Windows 10, that's that little thing that keeps
That's how
popping
you
up.
download Chrome.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, in closing with this is basically look at how your other options is not just pinholing yourself into STEM and doing this one thing over, say, 4 things.
STEM is great, and I think it absolutely needs to be encouraged, but just don't forget about everything else that's kind of out there in the world. Like he's talking about, fixing your own cars, even the simple things, changing your bulbs, your oil, you know what I mean, a tire, those kind of survival, very simple survival things.
Especially change a tire. Everyone should know how to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Not how to call up AAA and have someone else do it for you.
So it's the same kind of concept. Like,
I'm not gonna lie, when I see a guy on the side of the road and there's a AAA truck changing out his tire, I'm like, oh, buddy, really? You gotta really? All right. I mean, if you're in a suit, I understand, but like,
the only little asterisk I'll put on that is if they have a spare, or if there's something wrong with the spare.
If it's a full blowout and they do that,
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know that. You just see a dude on the side of the road with AAA.
The first time I saw one of those fix-a-flat things inside a car, I was like, the world has gone upside down. Like, this is not acceptable. Like,
so you kind of have to push the other aspect, kind of like what you're doing with the stepkids. Like, hey, come out here. You need to know how to swing a hammer. Your basics.
Yeah, hit your thumb once or twice. Learn.
and one of the things I told my stepson, because he was pushing back on it, I go like, I don't want you to do this as a living. That's not why I'm showing you this. It's so when you take it to somebody, they're not ripping you off. Like, if you know enough about that car or whatever you're trying to repair, like the guy's like, listen, your flux capacitor's out of whack. I got to go ahead and do an engine scrubbing.
Yeah, your blinker fluid's out. We got to put 6 quarts in it because of that.
Yeah.
That's $150.
Listen, your warp drive is way out of funk. We got to go ahead and fix this. I need some dilithium crystals to fix this thing, so that's going to be $100,000.
Okay, yeah,
we need to reset the power coupling on this.
Yeah, exactly. Your inbound turbine is all jacked up.
But yeah, it's just one of the basic skills.
Yeah.
It's basic skills just to get through life. And I find that learning programming and STEM
is
helps
nice.
It helps you also in different areas, but learn the basics.
Yes.
Old men talking about old things.
And yelling at clouds.
Time for my afternoon nap.
Yeah, so it is time for afternoon nap. After that we get some KFC. And watch Golden Girls.
I'm gonna watch some Fox News and yell at young people. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. So
sit on the patio and just wave my fist.
Yes.
So this has been another episode of Geek 2.0. If you like what you hear, let us know. Comments, email, pigeon mail, whatever.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works.
I heard that snail mail still works.
What's that?
I had to buy stamps. I was confused by that.
Yeah, stamps.com.
Yeah, stamps.com. Oh, you guys have advertisers now. Oh, yeah, moving up in the world.
No, we don't.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This was
anytime.
Awesome. Glad you could make it.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me. So.
Hey, anytime. We love having guests. It's actually quite nice. We get bored staring at each other while we talk.
Yeah.
I don't know about those beautiful blue eyes you both have.
So, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening to this episode of Geek 2.0 Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Geek 2.0 Podcast. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Geek 20 Podcast. Don't forget to visit our website at geek20podcast.com for older episodes, news, and much more. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast through your favorite podcatcher player of choice. The Geek 2.0 Podcast is part of the Collective Network.